And senators have their first opportunity to question Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson as part of her confirmation hearings. She's facing questions about her judicial philosophy, her position on the First and Second Amendments, and her ability to stay neutral on hot-button issues facing the court.
Joining us now is Professor Alan Jenkins.
He is a professor of practice and teaches courses on race and the law at Harvard Law School. Professor Jenkins, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. There have been a number of points Republicans have been trying to criticize Judge Jackson on. One of them is her past as a public defender and defending Gitmo detainees. But tell us what a public defender could bring to the nation's highest court. It's my understanding there has not been one yet on the Supreme Court. Is that correct?
That is correct. And thank you for having me. It's going to be extremely important to have a former public defender on the court. The last criminal defense lawyer, or a lawyer who was involved in criminal defense who was on the Supreme Court, was Justice Thurgood Marshall, who was confirmed in 1967. So it's very new. It's different. It's much needed. Public defenders are really on the front lines of defending and upholding our Constitution. The way our court system works is that prosecutors try to put people in prison or to convict them, and public defenders are the ones who often are lifting up the Constitution, the importance of due process, the importance of fairness, and often freeing people who were wrongly accused. So having that perspective, which no other sitting justice has, is going to be extremely important in a court of 9 justices.
Professor Jenkins, we see Republicans comparing the treatment of Judge Jackson during the process to the treatment of conservative justices during their own hearings. Is there any merit to this criticism? And really, why even bother with this line of questioning?
Well, so taking your second question first, there's always a lot of speechifying in these confirmation hearings. And here you have the Republican senators trying to send a message both to their fellow senators on the Democratic side and, more importantly, to their base, their conservative base, that they feel some of their judicial candidates from their part, nominated by their president of their party, have been wrongly treated. I really don't think it's a fair comparison. For example, now Justice Kavanaugh was faced with a credible accusation of sexual misconduct and of not telling the truth about it. Now, the Senate considered that. The majority of them decided, apparently, that he was telling the truth and his accuser was not, and now he's on the court. But we don't have any kind of similar circumstance with Judge Jackson or with any other recent nominee, going back to Clarence Thomas being the last time we had those kinds of accusations. So to suggest that Justice Kavanaugh was somehow treated differently under similar circumstances to the current nominee, I really think doesn't hold water.
And Professor Jenkins, as you know, as we were talking earlier, the Republicans have levied many criticisms against Judge Jackson and will continue to do so throughout these hearings. But I'm curious about your thoughts on how the hearings are going so far. How is Judge Jackson responding to these criticisms levied against her by Republicans? Do you think the Republicans are scoring any points so far that could derail what appears to be almost a sure nomination?
I think she's doing extremely well. The judicial nomination process is always a bunch of political theater and political speechifying interspersed with some very difficult and challenging questions. And so the nominee has to remain stoic while the speechifying is going on. That's the role of a judge, not to engage in that kind of discourse, but then be ready to answer the tough questions when they come in a way that is understandable, not just to the Judiciary Committee, but to the members of the public who are watching. And I think Judge Jackson here has done an excellent job. She's responded with poise and with intelligence and wisdom, and also with more candor than we sometimes see from nominees. She's been willing to talk about the role of policing, the role of the public defender, the role of precedent, when asked about those questions. And often we've seen past nominees just repeatedly say, I can't answer those questions because of, I might be deciding on them. And I would say that Judge Jackson has been as candid as she can while maintaining the appropriate role as a judicial nominee and a sitting judge, which she still is.
Candid is always nice to see. Professor Alan Jenkins, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.